I don't want to put you. I don't want to put you on the spot. Did you leave a
Okay.
comment in one of my videos saying that I lied about the history that Ben Shapiro was lying about?
No, that wasn't. No, I haven't been in your comments. I think I've been watching you, but I haven't been in your chat, or
We
I
are
don't think I've
finally going
commented at all.
live.
I don't think I have.
Do you have a YouTube channel called Lauren DeLaguna?
Yeah.
Not legal advice, not a licensed attorney.
Yeah, that's me.
Okay. Um,
Maybe
so
I have, but I don't remember commenting. I don't
it's
think.
okay.
I don't think you're a liar. I don't think you're a liar. What is up? I'm a little bit Discord retarded, so I'm sorry about that.
It's a good introduction. Oh fuck! I need to get your camera. Oh god, hang on. Give me a second. I don't think you're gonna get mine because my camera does not like splitting, but I'll get yours. I'll just do it the vintage way. Okay, that works.
Wonderful. How are you?
I'm fine. I'm just chugging along, trying to be a responsible voice on the war, you know? How are you?
You're a voice of the war.
In the war, as in like commentating on the war. I'm not the voice of the war. No, that wouldn't make sense.
Yeah. I was wondering. Yeah, no, that's great. I'm chilling. I am not focusing on any wars. I am living my life pretty, I guess, egocentrically, I guess you could say. Just focusing on myself.
What does that involve?
Not ruminating over Israel Palestine. Like I find in the past, maybe especially with politics, sometimes I find when there's traumatic or really stressful events going on in the world, I find myself allowing to feel like the stress of others, and a lot of times you can't deal, like sometimes you have personal things going on and it's not healthy for you to think about everyone else in the world. Sometimes you have to put the air mask on yourself before you try to help anyone else.
Wow. So your self-care is to stand silent in the wake of human suffering.
Well, especially with the Israel Palestine stuff, I feel like there's so much propaganda coming from both sides that I feel like if I were to speak on the issue and be incorrect and be promoting incorrect propaganda, I'd feel extremely guilty. And also, I don't feel like anyone has a moral obligation to speak on anything that they don't feel comfortable speaking on. Just because I'm Jewish, I'm not morally obligated to talk about the Israel Palestine issue.
Would you say it's like supererogatory to talk about? Do you know what supererogatory means?
Um, No, but I do think I've heard the phrase.
It's
You
like
want to
an
explain?
act that's good, but not morally required.
I think it could be. Yeah, I think if you have a particular interest in it and you're not struggling with personal stuff at the time, such that focusing on others won't hurt you because you're solid in yourself. And you have the ability to talk about it and you have the ability to sift through information and verify what you can and are capable of being as unbiased as possible on the situation, then yeah, I think that would be a really great thing to do.
Um, what are some examples of disinformation that you thought was like really egregious?
So, for instance, like the bombing of the hospital, there's dispute from one side. It says that it was from an Israeli force, and then the days later, Israel was saying it was actually Hamas who bombed their own hospital, and also it wasn't 500 people dead; it was more like 50 people dead. So, and I don't even know if that's true. I don't know which part of that's true, and so I feel whatever the lie is, that's the problem. So, like that's one of many examples. One of many, many examples.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't want
It
to.
is.
I don't want to put you. I don't want to put you on the spot. Did you leave a
Okay.
comment in one of my videos saying that I lied about the history that Ben Shapiro was lying about?
No, that wasn't. No. I do sometimes have people who do like my like Lauren DeLaguna and like take my face and then like act like me. But no, I didn't.
You have
I don't even post
imposters.
on Twitter. What?
You have imposters.
I do, but I don't even post really about Israel Palestine on Twitter. I don't really like to touch the subject Israel Palestine. I was asked to be on a Kick or Keep about Israel Palestine, and I pulled out. The only debate I've done so far on Israel Palestine is the one with you, in which basically I just sat there saying I don't know enough information to really comment. So that's kind of been it. I haven't been in your comments. I actually like your content. I like to listen to people who disagree with me so that I can hear the other side. I think I've been watching you, but I haven't been in your chat, like, or I don't think I've commented at all.
Um,
Maybe I don't think I have.
Do you have a YouTube channel called Lauren DeLaguna?
Yeah.
Not legal advice, not a licensed attorney.
Yeah, that's me.
Okay.
So
So
That's
maybe I
off.
have. I
And
don't remember commenting. I
it's
don't think
okay.
I don't think you're a liar. I don't think you're a liar. I don't get that impression from you. I think that maybe certain things that you say I disagree with or I think you're wrong, but I clearly think that you study this significantly more than I do, and like have done a lot more research than I have.
What's like what kind of, you said you do interviews in your channel, or what's your channel kind of about? I haven't really, I've seen you on panels, and I've kind of
Yeah,
noticed that you seem to be kind of like a very independent thinker. Like you don't really I think you seem to be quite right wing from what I've got, but like not you definitely don't fall squarely in. So yeah, what's your like
yeah.
approach? What's your content like about? What do you do?
Oh gosh, it's hard to like label yourself. Like I am conservative, and I agree with like a lot of the trad con stuff and also some of the red pill stuff. But the problem is, I do find the red pill becoming more um anti-Semitic and women hating, and I'm against that. Like I'm very pro just supporting all people in the best way possible, and maybe recognizing some of the issues in gender politics that the right pill mentions as having some veracity. But I guess what do? I do mostly interviews with crazy people. That's usually my MO. But I have some normal people that I do interviews with. I've interviewed First Amendment auditors. I interviewed journalists. I've interviewed um, the guy who invented the sarcopod, which is a way that you could unalive yourself in certain countries where that's legal. So I just do like interviews with random people. I interview one guy who um, beat up his girlfriend and killed his dog, and he tried to defend himself on my show, and it was actually crazy because in the middle of the interview, a dead body fell on him, so he didn't really do a great job in defending himself, or
How
what
did the
appears to
body
be.
fall on him?
Pardon?
How did the dead body fall on him?
I'll send you the clip.
Like he
Yeah,
had a
I
dead
don't
dog on the top shelf and it just kind of fell
like
into his
it
lap.
looked at first we thought it was a sex doll, but then it was too humanoid to be a doll.
Oh,
It's either like a passed out woman or like a dead person, and it just kind of like it was out of frame. It was like this, and
okay.
then it just like that into
I'm
the
guessing
frame.
that's
And
not very TOS, is it? Like, wow.
he was like doing the interview like this, and the body just like slumped on top of him, and then he like hung up the call. That was pretty crazy. So I do a lot of interviews. I just passed the bar in Arizona and Florida. I'm waiting on character and fitness, which is why it says in my description that I'm not an attorney yet, because that is true. I don't want to give off the impression that I'm a bar certified attorney when I'm still waiting on character and fitness.
Mm-hmm.
But I do also do a lot of legal content as well.
What
Yeah.
what's your most right wing opinion?
Global warming doesn't exist. Probably is one of them.
It doesn't exist, or it's not man made.
Like maybe temperature is fluctuating upwards. I believe it's cyclical, like on a sinusoidal wave, but so we could be trending upwards right now, which I do believe is happening since this like 60s, 70s. But I don't think that there's man-made global warming, and if there is anything that we're doing to damage the environment, it's not what global warming experts claim is the issue. Like for instance, they say CO2 is a pollutant, whereas CO2 is actually what trees need to survive. So I just find like a lot of the propaganda coming from the climate experts to be kind of bullshit. So
Okay. We might come
that's
back to
another
that one.
that's another right wing crazy thing that I believe. Oh well, I think abortion is murder, like straight up, like Plan B murder. Don't do that.
Straight from conception. Anything after
Yeah,
conception is murder.
Loader box.
Okay.
yeah,
You smarmy
Um,
I do believe that.
what's your most left wing opinion?
My most left wing opinion. Um, hmm.
Loader box. You smarmy cuck bastard.
Well, I don't know if I would call it an opinion, but I try to push back on the whole red wing misogyny. Like I find that the conservative people online are really, and I don't like that. And I find liberals are much more kind to women, and I don't like that. Like I'd rather conservatives be the one who treat women kindly. That being said, I do think conservatives are the only one fighting for women's rights when it comes to like protecting our sports from having biological men in them and protecting our jails and protecting our bathrooms. But
Do you think bathrooms need protected from trans women?
from biological men, yeah. I don't think that biological men should be in women's bathrooms. Yeah.
Do you think it's been a while since I've had that conversation. So do you think every I guess you would call biological woman trans man? Do you think every trans man should have to go into the women's bathroom?
I do, yeah.
Buck Angel
Well,
goes into the women's bathroom with like a 6-year-old.
yeah, it's
Okay,
kind
so
of
how do
messed up.
you know? Because like there are some trans men who look about the same as me, right? Like as much masculine features as me, maybe even more so. So
Right.
can I just go into the
No, I
women's bathroom and
disagree.
say I'm a trans man?
Right. The problem is like the what I would like to see happen is almost impossible to implement is the problem. So the way that society has worked for forever is we haven't had this issue, and so the issue of determining who truly is female or who truly is male hasn't really been an issue in our society when entering bathrooms, and we're coming into a recent era where it genuinely is difficult, and so you can't like make people drop trout and check that they have a penis or not, and even if they do drop trout, who's to say that they didn't get neo vagina or something else, um vaginoplasty or whatever. So it doesn't really work in implementation anymore. That being said, for the benefit of society, that is what I think is best for society, is to continue to separate the genders. And for somebody who is struggling with gender dysphoria, I don't believe that the solution is physical transformation. I think that you need mental help to help you be happy as who you are.
I think when it comes to bathrooms, I feel like trans people have been self-organizing in bathrooms for like at least 30 or 40 years. I don't know if there's ever been much of a problem with that. Maybe like edge cases. Is it
Well,
the
I mean,
case?
remember there was like a couple of cases where people were getting attacked in the bathrooms where these men. So, for instance, there was that Wee Spa case, and then you had the case in Virginia, in which that young boy dressed in a skirt and he attacked two separate girls in private spaces. So you do have, so even if these people aren't actually transgender and are using the transgender privileges to, so like even if we say like genuine transgender people are not more likely to attack women than any other person, we can see predators use this ability to use either bathroom to attack women. We're making women's private spaces less safe. And it's not that I want to discriminate against anyone. It's just that I do want to care about women and safe spaces for women. Yeah, as a woman myself who has dealt with issues, I don't want to have to deal with that when I'm out in public.
So personally, I don't think I believe in sacrificing women's safety for trans rights. I don't think they should ever be treated as like a zero-sum game. But I guess when you come to like these incidents you mentioned, the Wee Spa incident or the assault incident, in both cases, these are already crimes, right? The crime wasn't that they went into a space because they were trans. The crime was that they did that in Wee Spa. It was they flashed the person, right? It was indecent exposure, and in the bathroom, it was like flat out assault.
That would not have been considered indecent exposure, right? Because that was in a women's changing room. So other women were walking around naked. This trans person walks around naked, and now it's considered indecent exposure because they still have a penis and they're showing it to children. So you see how that makes an issue where that trans person saying, hey, I'm just a trans person, I should be allowed in here. And the spa allowed them in there and did not penalize them for being in there. Whereas it's still, to the majority of people who see it, sexually dangerous. And not only that, the person who flashed themselves at Wee Spa had been a prior, before they considered themselves trans, had been labeled as a predator, had been caught doing similar crimes. But then when they became trans, it was no longer considered a crime. That's why they weren't in trouble at Wee Spa.
So going by memory, can you tell me exactly what the person was doing? Because like again, if I go into a male changing room at the gym, I'm probably okay to get my fucking knob out. But if I approach someone who's sitting down and start swinging it in front of his face, I might not touch, but I could still get done for indecent exposure. So I'm just wondering exactly if they were just walking around or trying to be discreet, or was something else going on? Like, I don't know. You can tell me.
My understanding, they weren't doing anything that would be inappropriate if it were a biological woman, but they had a penis and they were around children and young girls saw this, and I don't think he was like intentionally waving it in front of their faces, or maybe he was, I don't know, but just the act of walking completely in the nude and not attempting to be discreet, just walking around the changing room, displaying yourself. This wouldn't be an issue if they were a biological woman. It absolutely is an issue now that they have a penis. And it sounds because we're changing all of these rules to help transgender people feel more aligned with their gender, which I don't even think helps them, with their gender preference, I should say, which I don't think helps them. We are allowing predators to use these policies to, it's like they're doing nothing wrong. Hey, I'm not doing anything wrong. I'm just doing what a normal biological woman would do in a woman's space.
I'm just not, because I guess if this person was a predator, I'm just trying to think if they were doing anything else that
they were previously a predator. So they were before they considered themselves transgender, they had been previously charged with indecent exposure. And then they became transgender. Now, I don't know if they actually are, if they're just a predator using the transgender movement for their advantage. They became transgender and then went into Wee Spa. And then they weren't charged.
Why were they considered a predator?
Because prior to being transgender, they had previous instances of indecent exposure as a biological man.
They did indecent exposure. Okay.
Yes, they had a history of indecent exposure.
So even before they transitioned?
Yes. And so before they transitioned, they were being charged. They were being prosecuted because it was clearly violation of the law. Now everything's hazy. Now it's not a clear violation of the law because they're saying that they're a biological woman. And so that's making my spaces and other women's spaces less safe.
They're saying this person was in that changing room displaying a full erection for 30 to 60 minutes.
In a man's changing room, would it be indecent exposure if a man happened to be erect in there?
Not happen to be. If you're there and it's on display for 30 to 60 minutes, then yeah, I think something weird's going on. I wouldn't feel comfortable with another guy in a gym changing room doing that.
But would he be? I don't know if that's violative of any laws. Like if a man went into a men's changing room and was erect, it's not illicit for a man to have blood flow to his penis. That's not really even in his control, from my understanding. I'm not a dude. I don't have a dick. I don't know.
But to just stand there for 30 to 60 minutes, that's
I don't even know where you're getting that source. I'm kind of just.
This is on the wiki. I'm just from
from
Los Angeles Magazine. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. From my understanding, as soon as, because based off the video I saw, as soon as the little girl saw that penis, she immediately her and her mom immediately went into the lobby to complain. And when they complained, they were told that that penis was the penis of a woman. It was a woman's penis. And they shouldn't be upset to see a woman's penis because it's just a nice lady penis. Don't get mad at the lady penis.
I think this story might be a bit more to this story, but I would really love to know what exactly they were doing for 30 to 60 minutes in the changing room with their boner out. Like, I feel like that changes the parameters a bit different from like a trans woman in a changing room who's like trying to be discreet as anyone else, and is probably, I'd imagine 99% of trans women probably don't want their dicks to be seen in a women's changing room. They probably feel weird about it. Right?
Yes, and that's the difference between someone who's maybe genuinely struggling with gender dysphoria versus a predator who is using the changes in our laws for people struggling with gender dysphoria to their advantage to harm women. There are predators who prey on like changes in the law. Predators prey, okay? That's why they're called predators.
Yeah, but I just wonder if like the laws that or the standards that are put in place to keep trans women more safe, because I guess Blair White probably doesn't want to be in the male changing room, and she shouldn't be, because that'd be fucking weird.
I bet you Blair White uses if I were to guess, I don't know Blair, but I doubt she even uses women's bathrooms. I bet she goes into single stall areas when possible. It's my guess.
I feel like I've heard her say that she goes into women's bathrooms, but she probably goes into a cubicle, like, because again, women's bathrooms have cubicles. So, but I just wonder if we're saying like these laws wouldn't be enforceable anyway, because like I could just say I'm a trans man and go into the women's bathroom. I guess the thing is that like I don't think there's anything about the strict sex segregation policy that actually stops predators from doing anything. Because
I think it makes it significantly easier to charge them. I think it makes it easier to deter them from doing it. I think it makes predators it gives them less leeway with the law. Absolutely. And then for me, the biggest issue isn't even bathrooms. Women's sports and also women's prisons are major issues for me.
Sports and prison to me is a completely different issue. I think there's a lot more room for argument in the sports and in prisons than there is in bathrooms and changing rooms. I think that's probably why for so long, even though people who don't like, I'm not saying you're anti-trans, but I'm saying people who are like.
Not. And I do want to preface, I do have trans friends who know that I think like this. Like for instance, I mean, I actually have a lot of trans friends that I would never want to hurt or make feel bad. I would just like, okay, food shops, food shops?
Yeah.
Like wonderful person. And I would never want to hurt them. I'd like to be able to have these discussions with them, but simultaneously, I don't want to make people feel bad for struggling with gender dysphoria.
So fucking forgot what I was going to say now. I was going to say, what was I saying? Oh yeah, because I feel like it's no surprise then that like people who are anti-trans seem to cling on to like Jessica Yaniv from what 4 or 5 years ago now, and the Wee Spa incident, as like, even though this has been the norm for a long time, it seems to be the case that for the most part it makes sense. I don't think I'd want to see a world where the social expectation where like the moral right was for all the big butch burly trans men going into women's bathrooms with like fucking 4-year-olds and girls and shit,
no,
and vice versa with
yeah, that's not what I want.
Okay, but it sounds like you said the complete opposite.
No, what I want to see, no, because I said in an ideological world, I would like to have the bathrooms like that, and I would like not encourage trans. I would not encourage people who are struggling with gender dysphoria to physically change. outer appearance. I would like to encourage them to seek mental health treatment that would help them assuage the issues of gender dysphoria. So no, I wouldn't want burly looking trans men in women's bathrooms. I would prefer burly trans men to just, I would prefer women who believe that they are men to not want to become burly. I want them to be comfortable in themselves, and I'd like them to receive medical treatment that doesn't prevent them from ever experiencing orgasm or getting pregnant or breastfeeding their kids. I would like them to, yeah. So it's two things.
What if they were able to, like, say 20 years from now, they're able to like properly dig into the brains of trans people and they find out that whatever makes them feel that way doesn't go away? That it's like being gay, you're born that way. Would that change your approach to the policies, or?
So it's so interesting that you bring up the gay thing, is isn't the born gay thing, isn't that a like pretty much everybody believes that now, but 10 years ago, wasn't that like a big controversy, a debate? And then one thing that I remember being told is that there's like a gay gene, and then we did the Human Genome Project and we discovered, well, we actually cannot pinpoint where in the human genes there would be some sort of like gayness, heterosexualness, or homosexualness. And so therefore we actually decided maybe it's not as biologically preset as we determined. And I genuinely don't know if it is as biologically preset as you just phrased the question for even gay people. I don't know.
I think the typical consensus now is that there seems to be some environmental influence, like hormones or things like that, but it's definitely it happens too early and it's too complex for us to think that we can therapy someone out of it. So that's why we decide with gay people that even though your life might be a bit more difficult if you're gay, it's probably better to just let you be gay, because trying to convert you out of it is always worse. And I just wonder, if it were the same case for trans people, would you change the way you feel about how they should be approached?
Well, a huge difference also between this is like being gay doesn't an individual being gay doesn't impact society the way a person being trans impacts society, in terms of like the usage of space and the usage of private space and the entering of competition and the entering of just, there's so many ways that being trans influence society in ways that being gay doesn't. Like having groups of gay people doesn't influence society in the same respect. If, however, we found out, like, okay, we did the Human Genome Project again and we determined, oh, this is the gay gene, that's like, it's non-changeable, and this is the trans gene, it makes you suffer from gender dysphoria and it's immutable, no amount of therapy would fix it. I still don't know if the solution to that would be a physical change, even if there's no mental change to prevent you from completely getting over those feelings. There could be a lot of mental work that you could do to assuage those feelings, or at least make those feelings not painful. And I don't think that the physical transformation actually helps a lot of the mental issues that trans people experience. And that's why, in my opinion, and even though there are very limited studies on the issue, and the study I'm referencing has an extremely low N value, it should be taken with a huge grain of salt. But there have been studies that shown that the peak time for unaliving for trans people is actually 10 years post-surgery. So I'm not sure if we're actually helping trans people by encouraging them to go through the physical change.
I always thought trans suicide rates were highest around puberty, because that's when they suffer the most dysphoria with those radical changes in their bodies. But in any case, like, the reason doctors chose surgery and hormones over therapy was because we understood that those seem to produce better results, that trying to therapy someone out of being trans is what we spent a lot of the last 100 years doing, and it just basically ended up having the similar effects to torture, like it was with gay people. But I guess you're saying that even if it were the case that being trans was immutable, and therapy wouldn't make it better because it's immutable, therapy would only make it worse.
It wouldn't make it not better. You could still, even if it's immutable, even if you're always going to feel gender dysphoria, you could still work on therapeutic ways to alleviate the pain that feels. So it's not that therapy doesn't work, it just might not work at literally getting rid of.
Yeah, but that's why currently they prescribe hormones and surgery, because it doesn't get rid of dysphoria, but it alleviates it.
Right, but from what I've seen and what I've studied, and a lot of these studies have N values under 300. So first of all, a lot of these are experimental, extremely experimental. So I feel uncomfortable experimenting on the human body the way that we have been experimenting on the human body to try to help. And I understand that it's for the benefit of helping people, but there are certain procedures that doctors are not allowed to try because they're too experimental with not enough data to show potential efficacy. But then you look at people who have been kind of the forerunning of this surgical aspect. So, for instance, you mentioned teenagers at puberty. The one person who basically the entire nation has followed, who was one of the forerunners in transgender surgery, would be Jazz Jennings. And look what happened to Jazz Jennings. They're struggling with obesity, they're struggling with severe depression, they're struggling with their vaginoplasty has major complications, they're having hormonal issues, blood issues. Like, so the one person who is supposed to be exemplifying the great things about the medical transitioning has in real life shown us the massive issues that come along with it. And I don't think putting people through all of those horrific issues, especially at a young age when they're already struggling with the mental difficulties of gender dysphoria, making them decide that they're going to go through all of these physical transformations as well, I don't think that actually makes them happier. And I genuinely care about people, and I want to make people as happy as possible. And I don't think that transgender people getting the surgery is actually the way to make them happier.
I don't have a problem with low N values because there's not that many trans people in the world, and there are even less of them who get medical care. I think Jazz Jennings is an N value of 1, so I don't care about that. When we're talking about, like, why is it the case? Actually, no, never mind. I don't know why I need to go back down that line. So even if we assume, because I'm quite confident that the research on the whole is not what you're saying. So say we found that being trans was immutable. We also found that the best way to alleviate their own symptoms was hormones and surgery. Would you still be against it, or would that change it?
Can you repeat it one more time?
So we're assuming two things. We're assuming, one, that being trans is immutable, it doesn't go away. And we're two, that the best way to alleviate their pain is hormones and surgery.
Okay, first of all, you'll have to show me that proof, but that's just not.
We're assuming it's a hypothetical. I mean, I'd rather do that than go into a study battle with you, even though I'm pretty sure the research leans in my favor. Yeah.
It's like the type of hypothetical. You're just like assuming I'm 100% right. Wouldn't you agree with me? It's like, yeah, okay.
Well, no, because I'm just wondering if you have any ulterior reason. Because if I know that your answer to that is that would change your position, then we can maybe talk about moving on to show why it's actually the case that. Then it would benefit for me to convince you that that it's the case that those treatments work. But
then it's just about the studies at that point.
Yeah, then it would be studies, yeah. But I just want to know, because it feels like, because there are some people, I think, and maybe this isn't you, there are some people who think that even if it does turn out that it's immutable and that the treatments help, they would still be against it because of the social damages, right? There are people who would say that. And I'm just wondering, I'm trying to find out if you're that person. That's what the purpose of me asking.
That's an interesting issue. Like, do we sacrifice the individuals for the benefit of society because they make up such a low percentage of, like, that's a major thing that I hear. Like, they only make up, like less than 1%. Why are we changing all of society for this less than 1%? I'd like to think about that one a little bit more. I'd probably have to think about that more if there was a way that we could formulate society. I don't know. I want to think about that one a little bit more.
Interesting.
But
Okay.
I mean, I do want to create the maximum happiness. It's kind of like utilitarian, and there are some sacrifices that you have to make in order to do so. I don't want, but simultaneously, who am I to determine which person is to suffer in order to make society best? So it's just a moral conundrum.
Okay. Yeah, you don't have to come out with an answer right now. Just thought it'd be worth asking. What else? Do you want to argue about abortion?
If you want, if you want.
I
Life is a life.
yeah.
Don't snub life. Murder is murder.
Why
Life
does
begins.
life
then.
begin at conception? Why is that your cutoff point? Why is that your starting point?
Just like a scientific understanding of like the definition of life.
It's a definite okay.
Yeah, growing, the ability to produce. And so as soon as you have these two cells come together and conceive, then the cells start growing, and you go through mitosis, and you go through the biological processes of life. And so for me, that is a human life, even if it's not capable of thinking or feeling or has a heartbeat. That's not really necessary for human life, in my opinion, especially because there are plenty of people who suffer from issues in which there are rare diseases in which people don't have nervous systems. There are people who need heart paces, like people to pump their own heart for them, or people who have had heart transplants. So there are plenty of people who have had when people try to define life, there are plenty of people who are alive who are missing the components that people like to bring up when discussing what life is. And in my opinion, life is here's how I think of it. Like, a human being is a human being when they're 90, they're a human being when they're 50, they're a human being when they're a teenager, they're a human being when they're a toddler, they're a human being when they're a baby, they're a human being in the womb, they're a human being at conception. There's no point in time in which I find a clear distinction, and that's why if you start old and go back, I don't know where you would draw that line and say, oh, this is no longer a human being.
Because I feel like you mentioned that it can grow, that it has a biological process, but I guess that's also true of the cells when they're separate, right? They don't come out of nowhere. Like egg cells go through a biological process, as do sperm cells. I'm just wondering what's so special about when they come together.
Egg cells cannot like go through the process of mitosis.
I'm not saying mitosis, but they have there's still the biological process, isn't there? Like they come out of something.
They're going through they're not going through like the biological processes associated with life, like the growth. They don't multiply and grow, like they just remain one egg. They go through, they exist as an egg.
But the egg develops though, right? There's they're like, what do you call it? Oh God, there's like the primary fucking follicles. So at the beginning of the menstrual cycle, the thing that becomes an egg starts small, and then it's like, it becomes a fully mature egg at a what, like 24, 36 hours? Like, I don't know, my biology is bad, but like it's not. I'm just wondering what's so special about like the particular, like the fertilized egg compared to what before an egg is actually when it's on its own.
Yeah, a fertilized egg will definitely become a human, whereas an egg on its own will not become a human until it's fertilized.
So because it will definitely become a human.
Yeah.
So.
And it is a human. Like it is. Like it's.
I mean, it might not definitely become a human. It can have like miscarriages and shit like that. And
a dead human, still a human.
The miscarriage of a dead human.
Yes.
Okay.
Is it a dead monkey? Like what else would it be? It's a dead human.
I mean, I would say that it's a dead fetus because I don't really know what's so special about.
What is a fetus? That's like saying, oh, it's not a dead human, it's a dead teenager. What is a teenage? It's not a dead human, it's a dead elderly person. It's not a dead human, it's a dead baby. It's not a dead human, it's a dead fetus. It's like, yeah, okay, all of those things are human.
But I don't think there's a reason, for example, that I don't feel like people value eggs,
People don't
like
value a
fertilized
lot of
eggs,
things.
quite as much as they value like a human who is actually like even like a 9-month abortion. And I think the reason for it is that where we cut off life at an egg, at a fertilized egg, I would say that the typical, like, people would say they have the biological answer, is I feel like they typically say that it's because that's when you have your own unique genetic code. That's what they mean about human. That's your unique genetic
That one
code.
isn't really. I don't really like that phrasing because then I also think about like twins and like, do they have a unique genetic code, and does that make them non-human if they don't have a unique genetic clone and then code, and then also if you're cloned, does that make someone? So that's why I don't like that particular phrasing.
But it's like even a twin human still has its own genetic code, though. Like, it's still that, like, they still have the code to their, that's for themselves, even if it's like not. Are their genetic codes completely the same though?
Isn't that true? I thought twins had literally identical genes. I could be wrong, but then also clones have identical genes, and I would consider them to be their own.
But the
unique.
genetic code of like a, well, maybe I'm learning as I go along. The genetic code of the human is different from the genetic code of the egg and sperm before they're together, right?
There isn't a genetic, like, you don't have the
Yeah.
means to have genetic code at that time.
Yeah, so yeah, because they have their genetic code, like the human genetic codes. Yeah, yeah. So maybe there's just the
Yes.
word unique, the human genetic code of. So yeah, but I feel like the problem with that is that
So you just
that-
wanted that to be my answer so that you could have a problem for it, even though that wasn't my answer.
no, I know your answer is that they'll become a human. It'll become a, or it's like, even though
It
I
is
think
a
it's already a human. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting. I don't know if I want to do the abortion debate. Oh God.
Yeah, no, it's lame.
What
Yeah.
else? Actually, you know what? Fuck it. I might do an abortion debate with you, but just not today. I'll think about it.
Yeah, no, we could do abortion and go. I actually owe Starlight. Starlight? Is that Stardust? I owe
Stardust,
Star
yeah.
something. Yeah, I owe her a global warming debate. We were supposed to set that up weeks ago. So
Do you think sorry,
yeah.
wait. Do you think a miscarriage is like just as tragic as the loss of like a 30-year-old then?
No, I think they're both extremely tragic. I think the loss of the 30-year-old, you're losing like memories, you might have plans with that person, you have probably deeper emotional ties to that person if you knew them. So I think that's why the feeling is significantly stronger for a lot of people, but it's a loss of a human life in both situations, and both extremely tragic.
If it were the case that you could monitor, that you could prevent miscarriages, but what you have to do is you have to make sure that the mother is strapped to a hospital bed for 9 months. If she has to be monitored all the time.
Okay, so that would be like saying you could prevent murders. All you have to do is strap up any person who has a propensity to commit murder up for their entire lives, or throw them in. You should throw people in jail prematurely before they commit a crime because they have a high likelihood to commit crime. Like, that's not the
Well, I
American.
think the chances of you getting murdered are far lower than the chances of someone having a miscarriage. Miscarriages are quite frequent, aren't they?
Oh, sorry. I thought you were saying abortion. You're saying if we could prevent miscarriages by locking women. First of all, how is that a thing? How are you going to prevent miscarriages?
Well, that's
by
why it's a
locking them?
hypothetical, because I mean, miscarriages should be like the biggest of all like human tragedies, right? Because it's like what it's like 10 or 20%, right? Yeah, miscarriages are like the worst thing. That's worse than any fucking war. It's worse than any genocide. Yeah, it's just like, it's so many deaths that we could like of people who don't deserve it, right? So I'm just wondering if there was a way to prevent miscarriages, but it meant that you had to strap a woman to a hospital bed to do it.
Depriving other people of their life and liberty. Like, consider depriving someone of their ability to freedom, like a deprivation of life. So, yeah, no, that wouldn't work. I don't like your hypothetical.
So we shouldn't deprive a mother of her life and liberty even if it's to save the life of the baby. The woman's liberty is more important than the 20% chance of the baby dying.
You're saying, should we lock women up? You're oh my god, your whole thing. This is like bad faith arguing. You know this, right? You know this is really
No,
bad
I don't
faith.
think it's bad faith. I'm just asking. I just want to
Yeah,
know.
let's go. Fine, we could go. So locking up women because they might have a miscarriage, even though that literally would do nothing to prevent the miscarriage. But in this
It's a hypothetical, yeah.
in this hypothetical, locking women up in jail somehow prevents miscarriage, and 90% of them weren't even going to have a miscarriage anyway. So we're locking up all women who are pregnant, despite the fact that the majority of them wouldn't even have a miscarriage. I wouldn't even if I know a certain percentage of women are planning on having abortions, I wouldn't lock them up either. I don't think that you can lock people up. I don't think your analogy makes any sense whatsoever. It doesn't.
Would you lock up the
prove your-
doctors who do the abortions? Because that's, to you, it's murder, right?
Yeah, I would absolutely, if we can outlaw abortion, I would absolutely lock up the doctors who commit abortion. Yes.
But the mother's not like an accomplice in the murder, because if you hire a hitman to kill someone, I think that's illegal, isn't it? You're the law person, I don't know.
My issue with locking up the mother is not so much that I don't think that they're complicit. My issue is that I'm worried that women who have like an actual miscarriage or who lost the baby not through means of abortion will be prosecuted as though they committed an abortion. And also, furthermore, I don't think that prosecuting women actually prevents future abortions. I think prosecuting doctors would absolutely prevent future abortions if abortion was illegal, I mean.
So the mothers, that they just don't get anything happen to them, or
My issue is the inability to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that they committed the crime alongside of the doctor as opposed to having a genuine miscarriage. So yeah, and unfortunately, it's kind of like there are certain laws set up, not in the United States, but I think in Switzerland or Sweden, where prostitution is illegal just for the John, but not for prostitute. So it would be somewhat similar along those lines.
I'm just so it's more like a legal issue, but I guess morally, if you could prove beyond a reasonable doubt that she got an abortion because she didn't want the baby.
Yeah, I mean, if we had the capacity as a society to determine someone genuinely committed a crime, and after the crime, then I think that we'd be able to lock them up. Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
So
I think that's
why
what
wouldn't you just talk to me directly, though?
Whoa.
If you had an issue with what I was saying.
well, I
How
just
is that?
said it. So go ahead.
You want to say something? What do you have your question
I
about?
just said it. So first of all,
Okay.
what would make a miscarriage in your situation, in your circumstance, right? What would make a miscarriage different from involuntary manslaughter?
Because a miscarriage, you don't have, so for involuntary manslaughter, you still have to have a mens rea. You wouldn't have intentionally done anything just by having a miscarriage.
Sometimes you can, right? What if you're an athlete and go play sports?
Right.
end up
So
having a
once again, that wouldn't meet the mens rea.
What if you
so
have-
clearly
what if
don't
you
know
drink?
what the fuck you're
What if
talking
you
about.
drink? What if you
Yeah.
drink and have a miscarriage?
Okay, well, drinking while pregnant is illicit, isn't it? In certain states, isn't that considered child abuse in certain states?
It might be in
So,
certain states, but what we're arguing
yeah,
here
you
is
really don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
what
And you
we're
were like,
arguing
"Oh,
here.
she was
is- what
actually a
we're arguing
lawyer."
here
Are you a lawyer? Did you go to law
I
school?
have a master's degree in justice law.
So
and society.
no, you don't. You didn't go to law school. Is what you're saying.
So what we're arguing here
So what you're
is
saying,
the
you didn't go to law school.
the concept
So you didn't.
of
You didn't
whether
pass
or
the bar in
not.
2 states like I did.
So you can keep saying that. I already
Because
told you
it's
what my
true.
credentials are.
Yeah, your
Are you not
credentials are
answering the
shit.
question because you just don't want to?
Your credentials are bullshit. But go ahead.
Are you just not going to answer the question because you
No,
don't
I'll
want
answer.
to?
Go ahead. Ask your question.
Okay. So are there circumstances where a miscarriage would involve the actions of the mother?
So the cases in which, like, for instance, doing drugs and alcohol, purposely neglecting the mother, could potentially meet the mens rea standards. However, that would be a state issue, and
In those
it's
states,
likely
should those women go to jail?
if they're meeting the requisite mens rea to prove that they have committed the crime of murder, then yeah.
Okay, so for the record, you are okay with a woman who, let's say, goes and has like a very aggressive game of field hockey, ends up having a miscarriage, whether or
That
not she knows
probably,
she's
once
pregnant.
again, wouldn't meet the mens rea, you dumbass. That wouldn't, drinking, doing heroin, that would meet the mens rea. Playing a game of
So why
hockey.
wouldn't, okay, so explain to me, if we know that that can cause a
No,
miscarriage.
you were the
why
one who
wouldn't
just said, you were the one who just said
let
that you
me-
didn't
let
think
me
I
finish.
went to law school and you don't
Let
even
me
know
finish.
fucking basics.
Let me finish, please. So
Okay.
if a woman knows she's pregnant and she knows that she's going to enter into an activity that could
You don't know
endanger
that.
the life of the
You don't know that.
fetus,
There are
right?
plenty of women who exercise while pregnant. That doesn't mean that you're intentionally causing the death of your baby. In fact, plenty
But
of
it's a
doctors would
possibility.
recommend light
But
exercise.
it's a possibility. But it's a possibility.
That
Just
wouldn't meet
like-
the mens rea. Are you not speaking English, or do you have literally no understanding of the law whatsoever?
Are you just screaming because you don't want to engage
No,
with this further?
I am frustrated about how stupid you are. You don't understand literally the basics of the law, and then you're coming at me like, if she actually graduated law school, bitch, please, you didn't graduate law school. You don't
I
even
never
know
said
the
I
fucking
graduated
basics.
law school.
Yeah,
I never
and
said
it's
I
clear you
graduated law
haven't.
school. I
And
never
it's
said I
clear you
graduated law
haven't.
school.
Bruh, so you're just gonna talk over me.
So why? So
You're just gonna talk.
so-
Is this your
so if this
arguing
is a horrible
strategy,
crime,
just
if
to
this
talk
is a
over
murder,
someone because you're so
if
fucking
this is a
stupid? Is that
murder,
why you couldn't go
like
into
you're
law
saying-
school? Did you apply
like
for
you're
law
saying,
school and not
if this is
make
a
it?
murder-
Did you apply
if
for
this
law
is a
school and not make
murder-
it? Did you apply
this
for
is
law
a
school and not make
murder-
it? Bruh, I want doctors to be prosecuted. I tend to find that women who are getting abortions, I tend to find them mentally unfit, to be fair. So I think that
women who get
prosecuting them,
abortion
it's
are
not
now-
about getting
okay,
away
now
with
we've
it.
moved on to women who get abortions are mentally ill.
You were going to say a different word there.
Yeah, I think that they're mentally not. I think that mentally they're not thinking that it's. They're not knowing that it's murder. I think that they're confused about what they're doing a lot of the times. So you're not having the mens rea necessary to commit murder, whereas doctors are fully aware of what they're
That's a
doing.
really good way of not having to engage with the actual conversation.
Oh my God, because you don't understand the law at all. You think it's not engaging, but you don't even understand how mens rea works. Like, you literally don't understand the very basics of criminal law to like a fundamental level that it's actually embarrassing. And then you're going around being like, if she actually graduated law school, bitch, you didn't graduate law school. You didn't even get into law school.
Okay.
Okay, but it's true. Okay, bye,
That-
losers.
That's all I had.
Okay. Fucking hell. All right, take care. You know, I haven't spoken to conservatives in so long. I feel like I got rusty there. I don't know. Need to get my chops back. And she's definitely more intelligent than the other fucking right wingers we've had on like Majorly Based and shit. So yeah, well.